Before big data, before hashtags and pings, before the internet of everything, even before AOL instant messaging. Before mobile devices, before personal computers, even before we saw man walk on the moon, we heard War of the Worlds. Before Alexander Graham Bell, before the printing press, even before papyrus and hieroglyphics, we had stories. Since the dawn of mankind, stories have enabled us to connect and exchange wisdom. Thanks for going with me on that dramatic entrance. We are wired to connect. We are wired for stories. We remember narratives up to 22 times more than facts alone. Stories are so innate within us that children crave stories and elders naturally reminisce. Today, the devices we are creating to conveniently connect us to data and information are moving us farther from our cerebral evolution. We are creating a world where we are alone together. It isn't humanity that has changed. It is just technology that has changed our environments. Let us reimagine technology as a tool to connect the ages. This is my most precious possession. It isn't worth a dime, but to me it's worth more than its mass in diamonds. I found it while on a hunt for buried treasure with my hero. All it is a broken piece of glass. This is Captain Kenneth D. White. He is a dreamer, and he is my hero. As a dreamer, he taught me to follow my passion. As an athlete, he taught me perseverance. As an entrepreneur, he taught me how to hustle, something that many of us in this room know a little bit about. As a pilot, he taught me to look at the bigger picture. As a sailor, he taught me that seasickness is worth the adventure. This is Captain Kenneth D. White, my hero, and I have the honor of calling him Gramps. About a decade ago, he was forced to retire. All pilots are forced to retire. And he had to give up an occupation that gave him joy from the first time he rode in an airplane when he was a little boy. How many people here have retired relatives? I think that's about everyone, but the lights won't let me see. Today, 10,000 people turned 65. That's a whole lot of retirees in the US. Withdraw, give up, surrender, regress. These are the cousins of retirement. This is what we're telling people they need to look forward to for 20 more years of their life. This isn't right. Age is simple. It's chronological, it's biological, and the place where we have the most room for improvement is the psychological. But how are we supposed to do this in our anti-aging, anti-wrinkle, youth-obsessed world? It's almost impossible. Let us redefine retirees. They are our fastest growing natural resource. They are gurus, they are teachers, they are mentors. Meet Vanessa. Vanessa belongs to my mentor and his wife, Elizabeth. Elizabeth and Vanessa didn't live near family while Vanessa was growing up. And Elizabeth, being one of the wisest women I know, would take Vanessa each Sunday in the back of her bike to a nearby nursing home. Vanessa was just 2 to 4 years old at the time, but she built very close relationships with 2 of the residents. Her first friend was a retired teacher, and she also had Alzheimer's. She often sat and had a stuffed turtle next to her and a book in her hands. Oftentimes, the book was upside down, and Vanessa would run up to her, see that the book was upside down, flip it over, and say, your book was upside down, but that's okay, I fixed it. She also became very close with a man that she saw in the hallway frequently. She would always run to his room to make sure he was okay. One day on the way to his room, the nurses shook their head towards Elizabeth, and she knew that her friend had passed away. I don't think a parent is ever prepared to teach a child about death. So when Elizabeth explained to Vanessa that her friend had passed, she reacted with, "That's okay, I'm glad I got to know him, he had a nice life." What a natural response. What if we can see aging through the eyes of a child? Would we have these stigmas? I don't believe we would. We wouldn't have learned them yet. We would see our aging world as a gift. We have a massive collective wisdom, and we have the technology to make something of that wisdom, to share it, to embrace it. Elizabeth also passes on along cartoons, and she cut out this Pickles cartoon a few months ago. Starts with a grandson and a grandfather sitting under a tree. And the grandfather says, "There's an old African proverb, when an old man dies, a library burns to the ground." That's why you should listen to old people and remember the things we tell you. Otherwise, all that wisdom and knowledge will be lost. And the grandson innocently responds, "Yeah, but we'll still have Google and Wikipedia, right?" We are creating a world where we displace wisdom with convenience. Instead of calling grandma and grandpa and asking about a recipe, we use Google. Today, we spend a lot of time on data, on big data, large sets of raw numbers. We put some meaning to that data, and we have information, and we learn the information in the form of knowledge. But what we are spending less time on now than ever is what got us here in the first place, on wisdom. It is time that we realign technology's acceleration with our growing human capital. 2 years ago, I started an international odyssey, if you guys caught that from the music, to find the best technology for older adults. While I didn't find my Shangri-La, I did find a lot of interesting technologies. But most of them were missing the most important piece. They were missing the human element. They were forgetting that technology is a tool that can connect us instead of keeping us displaced. In China, I naively assumed that family members take care of each other as they age. And when I got there, I heard a different story. Because of China's 4-2-1 family structure and their strong urbanization trends, elders in rural areas especially are being left behind. Think of how many people there are in China, and that's just one country. Isolation is a pandemic. It is a global health issue, and I would like to see it treated the same as chronic heart failure and diabetes. And it isn't just elders that are facing issues with isolation, it's every generation. Teenagers have suicide as their third leading cause of death, and with elders, isolation is more dangerous than smoking cigarettes. We have this immense human capital, but we are not using it. It is time that we try some paradigm shift pilots, and that's exactly what I did over the last year, is trying different projects to see what shifts people's psychological reactions about aging, from baby boomer meetup groups to intergenerational storytelling. And yesterday, we just completed the intergenerational storytelling project in Boulder with residents at a community and students from Fairview High School. What these residents and students taught me about relationships, I can't even begin to express. They had a magic. And the students weren't just interested in collecting their oral history and facts and information. What they wanted to know was what's important in life. Why did you do this? And learning how to fail. And learning how to fail is extremely important with our youth when we have so much pressure built up for them to succeed. And if they don't, it does feel like the end of the world. So elders give us a macro view of the world and allow us to realize that this is just one day. It will be okay. Stories are generational translators, and they are so natural to us that I think that was the magic behind this project. Not the brilliance of bringing people together for stories, but we were almost getting in the way. Us adults were almost getting in the way. These elders and these students naturally took off, and what they did is just amazing. So let us reimagine story as a tool to reconnect us to our greatest resources, our connections with each other. Let's focus less on data, information, and knowledge, and let's focus more on wisdom, on big wisdom, the collective wisdom we have in our world. Let's reconnect and use stories as a tool to exchange that wisdom and share life experiences. This is my Gramps. This is my hero. He is just one person. There are hundreds of millions of other Gramps out there who are a library of stories. So it is time that we listen and we take that in. So I ask you, if you're a teacher, will you bring elders into your classroom? If you're in med school, did you know that geriatricians are the happiest doctors? If you're frustrated behind an elder woman in line because she's taking a long time with the credit card machine, will you ask her about her day and realize that her biological functions might not be as fast as they used to, but hopefully you will be in her shoes one day? So I leave you with this, a question. How will you connect the ages?